This is turning out to be one of my favorite cameras, the Nikon D50.
Hey, what's up you guys? Nick here. The audio quality on this little portion is going to suck because we're using a GoPro without a mic. But as you can see, we are in downtown and we have the perfect skies to shoot with the Nikon D50. So we are out here doing an outdoor shoot with Ari with the Nikon D50, Yagno 50mm lens, and then my Tamron zoomy lens right here. After this little portion, it's going to turn into B-roll.
So it wasn't all that long ago that Dwayne was kind enough to send us this Nikon D50. And because it's becoming one of my favorite go-to cameras and my second body as my D50-100 begins to finally wear out and die, and the shutter count on this is low enough to use it as a viable backup, I decided to do my first shoot of the year with it. And the first shoot of the year this year was a beautiful overcast morning. Absolutely beautiful overcast morning with Ariana. We stopped for a little bit of coffee. We kind of chatted as the temperature rose from 25 degrees to 30 degrees and it was tolerable. And we hit the downtown area of my local town to take the Nikon D50 out for a spin for 2021. Now, I was a little bit concerned because I've had some issues in the past with older cameras, my Nikon D70 in particular, with the shutter slowing down when it's really cold out. With the Nikon D70, its shutter slows down a little bit when it's really cold out. But the Nikon D50 did not let me down. This is a warrior of a camera. It performed in cold weather absolutely fine between the Yagno 50mm 1.8, and I'll link my video up there to that, as well as the Tamron 18-100 that I have. This thing just chewed through shot and filled up its SD card in a really quick time because, again, you can only use a 1 or 2 gigabyte SD card, so it limits to about 150 to 300 photos when shooting in RAW. That's not generally an issue as I carry 3 or 4 SD cards with me, which we talked about in the video on prepping to make sure you're ready for a shoot, and I will link that one up there. So the Nikon D50, I have found some quirks about it that I want to discuss since our last video. Again, like I had mentioned before, you can only use a 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabyte SD card in it. Even a 3 gigabyte SD card was giving me a little bit of a hard time. I did order one and tried it out. So the 3.1 doesn't always read. Sometimes it read, but it didn't always want to be read in the camera. One of the other features I found is that the autofocus and manual focus button on this camera in particular isn't super crisp, so you can get stuck between autofocus and manual focus and you get a weird camera error. And when you get that weird camera error, it can throw you off a little bit. I accidentally found how to fix it on accident because I was fiddling around and looked at it and it was right in between autofocus and manual focus. That might just be because of the age of the camera. Now, I am pretty stoked because I got to use the video out finally, and this doesn't actually take video, but the video out feature allows me to connect it to my television or to my computer to quickly go through the images. Now that was actually super handy when I was in the studio with it in December because I was able to actually connect it directly to my computer, scroll through the images and find the ones that the client liked to get started there before I actually went through, culled them myself and edited them. So because the LCD screen was so small, being able to plug into my computer, show them on a full screen, then we could find the errors or the issues or anything that was out of focus right then and there, so we could retake the photos right then and there if we needed to. It's actually a pretty awesome feature. One of the other things I found with this camera, one of the other features I found with this camera is the white balance set. You can actually set a custom white balance with this, which is actually really cool. I was under the impression that the Nikon D70 was the oldest camera you could do that with. Granted, this came out around the same time, but this was a consumer grade where the D70 was considered a professional grade. So you can actually set a custom white balance with this camera, which is really cool if you want to go for more artistic pictures or artistic looks. And overall, I would say that going into 2021, the Nikon D50 will continue to be one of my workhorses. So I know we did a Nikon D50 video in 2020, and I'll link that right up there if you're interested in checking that one out. But overall, this camera is really cool in the function that it's about $30 to $50 on eBay. I checked more recent prices, and it has a built-in autofocus motor, which means you can use those older Tamron lenses. You can use the older autofocus film lenses that don't have an internal motor, kind of like the Yagnos do, or the more modern Nikon AFSs, I believe, have a built-in autofocus motor. This one will allow you to use lenses that don't have the autofocus motor but are still autofocus lenses, much like my Tamron lens that I have and some of the older Nikon 35mm film lenses that I own. So I'm able to put some of those older film lenses on this and use it, and you kind of get a vintage style through those lenses. I really like using older lenses, and I really like that as my eyesight gets worse, I can't always trust my glasses, so it's nice to know that I can use autofocus on an older camera such as the D50 or the D70 or even the D70S with those older lenses and still get those vintage feels that I want without worrying about whether or not it's going to be in focus. And next week we're actually doing a video on the Nikon D70S full spectrum conversion I have. I went and did a portrait session with that camera, so you can actually go through and see how well a full spectrum camera does portraits, but in that video we also discuss how it has an autofocus motor much like the D50, so it's nice that these older consumer cameras still had that autofocus motor so you can use those older film lenses in it. This one is 6.1 megapixels. The ISO range, again, is extremely limited, between 200 ISO and 1600 ISO, so it's not great for low light performance, but if you're shooting outside or you're shooting in the day or you have really good studio lights, this thing is a beast and it is a masterful piece of camera technology. But really, I just wanted to share the first shoot of the year with the Nikon D50. It was the first shoot of the year totally, and this is the camera I chose to go out and do it with because I am absolutely in love with the Nikon D50. This is kind of an update on my last review. I actually went through and bought some more expensive SanDisk 1 and 2 gigabyte memory cards for it, as I was using some cheapies when I first got it, but if I'm going to use it as a second body, I gotta make sure that I have good SD cards, and this one actually uses the SD card over the compact flash that the D70 and the D70S use. So there you guys have it, my update on the Nikon D50. Still a great camera going into 2021. It's the first camera I shot with of the year, which is actually really exciting for me that I was able to finally go and do a shoot. And the sky was overcast, which makes it that much better because overcast light is absolutely the best light ever, period. As much as I hate shooting outdoors, overcast light is the best light. So thank you guys again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you know right when I upload. Again, at 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away a Nikon N80 35mm film camera. We are trudging along very quickly. I feel like I just hit 500 subscribers and we're like at 540 or 550 now. And it seems like every day there are more and more of you. Special shout out to the people who follow me in the Philippines, India, the United Kingdom, and Germany, and here in the United States. You guys seem to be the countries that represent my viewers the very, very, very most. I want to thank you guys humbly with all of my heart. Have a good afternoon, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye.